We could reimagine entirely that what education was about was making these capable humans who were adaptable and versatile and really playing to their strengths.
Welcome to The Future We Want, a podcast for rebellious leaders ready to get to work, do the work, and create the future we want. I'm Raphael Bemperad, founding partner of BBMG, a branding and social impact agency that works with leaders that won't wait on things that can't wait. On today's episode, we speak with two visionary leaders and awesome human beings who are pioneering the future of education. Kelly Young is president at Education Reimagined, a radically inventive community of practice working for a socially just, learner-centered future where education lives everywhere. Michael Hansen is CEO at Cengage Group, an ed tech company focused on helping millions of learners achieve their education and career goals with more confidence, more opportunity, and more impact at every stage of life.
What's getting in the way is fear of change. Look, we have institutions that have been set up in many cases for hundreds of years to operate in a certain way.
At a time when we're all facing change at a pace like never before, Kelly and Michael share a vision for the role of education in our lives, our organizations, and our society, and how we can all help make learning work for everyone. So let's get to it. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us on the Future We Want podcast. It is a delight to see you.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
I'm curious, of all the things that you could have done, you've chosen education as the calling of your life. Why education?
It's an interesting question. And it started with my kids. Before I had my children, I will say I had a simplistic view of who children were. I could have fallen prey and did fall prey to the notion that it's our job to fill them up with inspiration, with knowledge, with skills. And then I had my children, and I discovered, wow, they are full humans with their own curiosities, interests, insights, aspirations, and one, that there was so much as an adult to learn from them, and that what it took for me to support them in their learning and their curiosities was so much less than I ever imagined. And when I saw that, I just couldn't imagine what the world would be like if we actually nurtured that curiosity and the insights that they have from an early age and just didn't beat it out of them. And that's when it became my passion, is beginning to see what the world would be like if we nurtured young people like it mattered, that the future of the world depended on it, that every child discover who they are and what there is for them to contribute to the world. If we did that even with 5% of youth around the world, this planet would be a different planet.
That is so powerful and beautiful. And I think it speaks to the kind of moment of choice that we face together. And so I'm curious, how would you describe the moment we're in? And why is it that you believe we need no less than a paradigm shift in how we think about education and learning to meet it?
The fundamental shift that we're proposing for education is a shift from a system that is designed for the efficient delivery of education. It is for knowledge transfer. It's a very compliance-based system, right? You have to do what you're asked to do, and you get ranked and sorted and compared to other children, other adults, and you're ranked. And it is the fundamental premise, whether we still abide by that anymore, but the system was designed to sort the opportunities, who gets which opportunities in life, that it was designed for a third of people to be able to go on into management, a third to be in factories, and a third to be laborers. And so we thought everybody needed to at least get through third or fourth grade, that we wanted basic literacy, basic numeracy, but beyond that, it really was up to the child, and that their destiny was already set. At the age of 5, you could determine if they were smart or not smart, and we would track them, right? That was the original design, and it's still inherent in the system, even though most people today don't abide by that purpose or would never espouse that purpose. Unfortunately, when you have all of the systems policies in place to hold that, it doesn't matter what the individuals want to do. The system dominates and doesn't allow for something else. So the paradigm shift that we came out with 10 years ago was to shift from a systems-centered or an adult-centered view of the delivery of education to one that's really child-centered and learning-centered. So if you were to create the conditions for learning, you would be asking fundamentally different questions than if you're trying to create a system for the delivery of education. And what we know about the conditions for learning is that love, belonging, curiosity, relevance, working on something that's meaningful are all the conditions for learning. And those things are really about creating the conditions for kids to be able to discover what their curiosities and interests are and pursue them with other young people and other adults in meaningful settings, whether that's a 5-year-old going out into the garden and discovering worms, or if it's about a 15-year-old discovering that coding and working on AI is the passion that they want to pursue. That is the fundamental paradigm shift, that what we need for today is lifelong learners who are prepared to live secure and fulfilling lives. And I say secure because, of course, there are fundamental needs that every person needs. But just having a secure job does not mean you have a fulfilling career. And so to have a fulfilling career, there needs to be self-determination, agency, the ability to pivot, to learn lifelong, and to be able to contribute meaningfully in diverse ways, and to know how you best contribute in ways that might not be your best ways to contribute because they're not the strengths that you have. So that is why for me, the shift has always been necessary, because young people, as humans, we are designed to learn. And if we get behind them and enable them to learn, they're going to go beyond our wildest dreams of what we think is possible for them. Now, if I look at why it's really important now, it goes beyond just lifelong learning and the ability to choose pathways that are fulfilling to you. If we look at the problems that we have facing the planet, and then you look at what AI is doing, one of the most interesting things is ChatGPT is designed to do the things that our brain is actually quite good at doing. It's designed for pattern recognition and to predict the future based on the past. And that's actually the basic skill set of our brains. And we are not just our brains, right? We are also have a full humanity. And it's in that consciousness, it's in that creativity, it's in that critical thinking, in our relationships to one another, that we're going to either save the planet or not. And that is a dramatic shift in what we are now focused on in the development of children. We are really focused on their knowledge base, their literacy, their numeracy, and we say college and career ready. But when we say college and career ready, we do not mean adaptable lifelong learners. We mean that they are capable of taking a standardized test that will get them into a good college, that will give them a good degree, that will give them a good job. As opposed to, we could reimagine entirely that what education was about was making these very capable humans who were adaptable and versatile and really playing to their strengths. I know that it took me years to figure out what I was good at, because there's a lot of things that I'm not good at. So it's of urgent need that we allow kids to know that they matter, that they have a contribution to make, not just in the future, but they can contribute now. And in fact, if they don't, the future of the world depends on it.
You know, philosophically, the way you framed the premise of education 100 years ago, it was really to fuel the economy. The premise was you're very much a cog in a machine. You have a role inside of an economic model, and education was oriented ultimately to fit a human being inside of an economic construct.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing from you philosophically about where we are today and what Education Reimagined is inviting is that we're actually very profoundly shifting the orientation to put the human being at the center and the way that human beings can thrive individually and together in a changing world. And that ultimately, if we want individuals to thrive, a sense of love, belonging, and meaning, consciousness, critical thinking, and relationship are going to be much more important than filling a vessel with quote unquote information, but rather nurturing, inspiring, and cultivating capacities for living and growing together.
Yes, beautifully said. You captured it exactly.
And with this future context in mind, which is if we keep an economic model, we will continue to put ourselves in graver and graver danger as a species and a society. If we flip the paradigm and have a human or learner-centric model, their growth, their passion, their creativity, their capacities for design, for collaboration, for relationship, that gives humanity a shot. And I've felt from the very first moment that we met that huge and beautiful shift has been your life's work and is really the animating purpose of Education Reimagine, the organization. How would you describe the core mission and aspiration of Education Reimagined? What do people need to know about what you're about, what you do, and the work?
Yeah, Education Reimagined, our mission is to make learner-centered education available to every child in the U.S. and as a public option, part of the public education system. And we are about agency, the ability to be self-determined versus compliance and doing what somebody else has determined that you need to do. We also believe that learner-centered needs to be available to young people and families, anyone who wants it, but not forced on them. Not everybody wants to be the first out of the box to make this kind of transition. And we want to make sure we're working with the land of the willing, the young people, the parents, the educators, the administrators who want to do this kind of work. And our 5-year aim has really become quite specific. We thought 10 years ago that this future was inevitable, and all we needed to do was accelerate it. And that if we helped build community and build a field of learner-centered practitioners, that we could accelerate this work and learner-centered would be made available. We knew that it was a lot of hard work, but we thought that people understood the level of systems redesign that it would take. We have since realized that it is not going to organically happen, and that is taking more concerted effort, and that it is a systems design problem. That we have instances of learner-centered education in public education, in charters, in homeschooling, in private, and they are not spreading. And they don't spread because they do not have the conditions to spread. If they're in public education systems, whether it's charter or district, they are surrounded by policies for standardization. It's like trying to grow roses in concrete. If you are outside of the system, you don't have the disabling systems to confront with, but you don't have enabling conditions. There isn't the funding. There aren't the systems that allow you to easily do a learner-centered. You're really starting from scratch every time to build this. So our focus is in the next 5 years that there are 5 demonstrations in 5 diverse communities that show what a learner-centered learning ecosystem could be, and having a public education system that sits side by side with the conventional one, so that people could actually see what it looks like when you partner with young people and create pathways that are relevant to them, contextualize in meaningful work, and personalized to where they are in their learning journey. So that is our work now. And also to say that how you get to 5 demonstrations of ecosystems is not by picking 5 winners and right now and working with 5 communities. It's by working with dozens of communities that want to be on this path and building the container for them to be able to share learning, to bring in systems designers, technology platforms, and accelerate this work so that they can not only build a demonstration, but have the scalable infrastructure that comes out of it so that the communities who come behind them don't have to start from scratch. They have adoptable solutions.
Yeah, amen. And I've know from our conversations that the premise that this could be something inside of a reform agenda, and that the premise was education reform, has shown its limits within the structures of the system and the incentives that exist and the context. And so we're really at a moment for reinvention. And as you're naming, like reinvention ultimately often succeeds when it's alongside reform, but you really need to have a playground for true reinvention that shows what's possible beyond the constraints of the current system and make what is possible tangible.
That's right.
Would you just walk us through, when learning lives everywhere, what does that look like in a day in the life of a child and a family?
Yeah, and it looks different at different ages. So I'll paint the picture for a 15 or 16-year-old who may know some of what they're interested in life, but really hasn't been exposed yet to even know what options are available to them. So in an ecosystem of learning, we have discerned kind of three physical spaces or three kinds of spaces. One is a home base, a place where you have a learning guide, the person who's your coach. There are other young people around your age, and it's where you create your learning goals, you create your learning pathway, you reflect on your learning. And this is where you start most days, if not end most days. And it's a place where each young person is supporting each other in having a successful learning journey. But it's not necessarily where all the learning has to happen. We also imagine learning hubs. A learning hub would be available to anybody, and you could have a STEM learning hub, an arts learning hub, theater learning hub, and they don't have to be all public schools. The YMCA can be a learning hub. A community college can be one. And then if you also add on to it field sites, any place in a community that's not designed primarily for learning, a business, a government place, a park, a nonprofit, anything that is set up for a different purpose also can become a place of learning where young people are now exposed to how learning actually happens. So you start off in your home base, and then based on your learning pathway, you might be at a learning hub and spend most of your day there, or on the next day, go to your internship and go to your local business. And then on day 3, spend a lot of time at your home base, actually processing and writing and doing some of the work that you have to do. But it doesn't have to look one way, and you will be able to, any place that your learning is happening counts. It doesn't have to happen in a particular place. So even when you have a job or you're taking care of your younger siblings, all of those things are fodder for self-reflection. And what are the skills that you're developing, and how can you articulate what those skills are? Because ultimately we need to be able to communicate the skills that we have to higher ed institutions or to employers to say, here are the things I'm good at. These are the things that I've mastered. Here are the things that I'm still learning. And here are the opportunities that I'm seeking.
That is so thrilling. And so what I love about what you're doing is you're reimagining a very human-centered way of thinking about learning that is deeply in attunement with humans' development and needs. So deep love, care, and respect for human beings' growth. But also you're putting the context in place where a human being moving into adulthood, young adulthood, will actually be prepared to meet the world. And right now we are often, we are vessels to be filled. We are behaviors to be managed. And then ultimately we arrive at a place where we have so many young people feeling anxiety and overwhelm and depression because the human being that they know they are in the world that they're in don't make sense. Yeah.
We had a young person who experienced learner-centered education only in her senior year of high school. But the way she put it was, we ask young people to make smart choices once they've graduated as their very first choices that they've ever been given. They are not given the chance to take risks, to fail, to try things.
Absolutely. And, what you're describing has so many profound implications for how folks who are in the world of business and brands might think about both the opportunity and the imperatives of their relationship with and to education. So I am curious, if you think about our current and future workforce? What are the skills and capacities that we need to thrive at work as we solve both business and societal problems in work life? And at the same time, the role that business can play no longer as kind of a silo from learning, but a potential node in a network of learning.
Yeah, I'll just start with a quote from a colleague who is building a technology platform called City as a School. And he said, what businesses most want is somebody who knows what to do when they don't know what to do. So you definitely need technical skills for whatever you're doing. If you're an engineer or in marketing or as a writer, there are certain technical skills that absolutely you need to have. And then there are all the skills that are often across all of these kinds of jobs, which is the ability to learn, to adapt, to self-reflect, to take feedback, to be creative, to figure out how to move forward when you don't know how to move forward. Those are the things that we could bake into an education system that accomplishes that for everybody, and then allows kids, the older they get, the more diversified they can get. So some people know from a very early age that engineering is that they have all the aptitude and that's where they want to spend the time and they want to go that direction. Others won't know until they're 18 or 19 years old. But if you have a system that allows them to gain and master critical skills that are necessary to be successful in any career, and then also narrow in on ones that are necessary for some particular careers, you now have somebody who is going to be a lifelong learner. Even if those were not the skills that they necessarily need, they will know how to pivot and shift and develop the skills that they need for their new aspiration. So one, we think that we don't even think, we know this kind of education produces the kinds of people that companies want to hire and promote and to have in leadership. The second thing is that as you mentioned, in an ecosystem of learning, businesses and employers have an important role to play, whether it's job shadowing for an elementary school child or a project for a middle schooler or a full internship or a job for a high schooler. If we are not embedding kids in meaningful real-time work, how can we expect them to be prepared for it if they've never experienced it before? So employers have a really important job in partnering and mentoring and developing our youth in business appropriate ways. We also know they can't provide the education for young people. That is the job of our education sector. And then lastly, there is contributing to it. There are foundations, there are corporate investments. This is a talent pipeline issue. And so it's not just about philanthropy. It's about actually aligning pipelines all the way back through early elementary and not thinking of it so company specific, but partnering with other industries and making inroads and ways for people to gain the very important, very narrow skills that you need somebody to have for your industry, and enabling young people to have access to those. That's both financial and time contribution that is necessary from businesses.
I love it. I think that for businesses overall, you're really moving to a much more expansive way of thinking about what learning means and opportunities not only to cultivate and support a future and current and future workforce that's prepared to thrive right now through change, but also there's a lot of skills-based volunteering. There's a lot of corporate philanthropy that's rooted in helping to work with communities to nurture young people and solve local dynamics that can make things better for everyone. This feels to me like a very ripe and exciting new domain for experimentation, for creativity, and for impact, as a big PSA for our friends in the business world.
Yeah.
So our podcast is The Future We Want. And so I am curious about your vision of the future that you want and what you might do to paint that picture of what might be possible.
Yeah, I see a future where young people are integrated back into life and not warehoused away from us to do their learning, but integrated in appropriate ways, age-appropriate ways, and in ways that work for the adults. but that they're reintegrated into society where we see the wisdom of young people respect the wisdom of their elders and the adults in society, and that we're working together on the most critical problems facing the country. Our youth have so much creativity, it makes me cry, to offer. They have not been trained to only see things one way yet. And if we allow that creativity in with us, with our wisdom of what we do know, we can solve problems way more creatively than we are today. The future I see is one where people know that they matter and that they have something really important to contribute to the future of the country and the world. It takes a long time for us to trust ourselves and what we're capable of. And if we just started out life that way, so much more would be possible.
Amen. Kelly, thank you so much. This is an absolute delight and an honor.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being an incredible partner along this journey. We couldn't be here without you.
So, Kelly is a glorious human, and you can learn more about her visionary work at education-reimagined.org. Up next is our conversation with Michael Hansen, the inspiring CEO at Cengage Group, and a leader I would follow anywhere. Since 2012, Michael has helped transform the organization from a traditional textbook publisher into a digital-first global learning platform that's dedicated to breaking down barriers to education so learners lead meaningfully better lives. Michael received Glassdoor's top CEO recognition in both 2018 and 2019, and he was named one of Fast Company's most creative people in business in 2020. Hello, Michael. Welcome to The Future We Want.
Hello, Raphael.
It's so great to see you. Because we're talking today about learning and the role that education and learning plays in meeting the needs of society and in business, but also fulfilling each person's humanity and creativity in relationship with themselves, in their work life and in their communities. And I'm just curious, as you think about your own story, Michael, your own life, has there been a teacher or a person who inspired your love of learning and in some way has shaped your calling as a leader?
The interesting thing about my personal journey is there were several people along the way, and they were not necessarily called teachers, and they were not necessarily called faculty, and I was not necessarily sitting in a classroom. I have learned things from judges sitting in bankruptcy court. I have learned things from my mother when she was, running a small business and trying to meet. I'm learning every day from my colleagues that I work with and that I encourage to challenge me. So I would say that, yes, there is some things that I've learned in the formal educational context, but there are so many things that I've learned along the way that the blend of it really is what made me who I am today.
And what I love about what you're naming is that really every relationship, every context, if we bring to it curiosity, an open mind and heart, and a sense of wonder, there's nothing but things to learn and to grow with all around us all the time.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Of all the things that you could be doing with your life, of all the things that you could do to bring your talent forward, why is learning, transforming learning, the focus of your life and work?
There are two reasons. And I would expand your question a little bit. It is learning, and it is learning at scale that I'm fascinated by. There are hundreds of thousands of incredibly gifted and incredibly passionate teachers and faculty around the world that help people learn every day. And I admire those people. Where I think I can have the greatest impact is to use what we have learned, the content that we have, use the technology that's available to actually bring that learning at scale to the learners so that we can teach, which is very much center of our credo, is that we can help people learn millions of students, one student at a time. And that to me is the passion, because I do think we otherwise have a massive societal issue that is not going to be solved. The only way that we can actually close the wealth gap is by closing the skills gap. And if we don't close the wealth gap, I think we are in for a period of continued strife, division, and frankly, danger in the country that we will fracture. And that is not only true for the US, that is true for China, that is true for Brazil, that is true for Argentina, that is true for many European countries. So I'm very passionate about education at scale is a way to solve a societal crisis, which I think we have today.
You know, one of the things that I've always admired about Cengage Group and you personally, exactly in this point about the wealth gap and the resilience and success of our communities and societies around the world, is that you've been really focused on making learning accessible and impactful for everyone, regardless of where you're starting, where you're going, where you come from. And that has always meant that you have to focus on what learning means for success in real life. So that every learner can experience the benefits of meaningful work, economic mobility, and ultimately fulfillment as a human being, flourishing Absolutely. In your creativity and in your relationships. And at the same time, you're noting learning is starting to be an imperative for social cohesion, for business resilience, and for ultimately a pluralistic democratic society to function. And there are a lot of things that are happening right now in the context of many profound challenges all coming together in our economy, new technologies we're navigating, climate change, democracy. All of these things are happening at once as we're trying to figure out what is the future of work, what is the future of life, what is the future of society. And in your own work, you have really highlighted a series of interesting to me and powerful facts. So today, 60% of individuals who start college still do not obtain a degree within 6 years. Goldman Sachs, who you've called out in one of your reports, your recent report, said that approximately 2/3 of US occupations will see some kind of automation because of AI in the future. And then the Cengage Group employability study found that only 41% of recent college graduates say that the program that they've just completed has actually taught them the skills that they need for their first job. So in the context of the confluence of challenges, the imperative of education for people in society, how would you describe the moment we're in, and how do we need to think about learning and education to be prepared to thrive in this emerging future?
Yeah, I think the moment that we're in is a very interesting culmination of a lot of trends that happened for a long period of time, for decades. And specific to education, I would describe it as follows. A lot of people are saying, well, the education system is broken. It's not broken. It does exactly what it's designed to do, which is to sustain itself. So it does good by the administrators, by the faculty, by the people that are in the system. But is it delivering value for money for the students? And that is what students are increasingly questioning. You cited the report. Many of them feel, even if I pass, first of all, only a small fraction of students actually pass and get a college degree, right? It's, only 40% attempt. Of those 40%, drop out. So you do the math, you end up with 24%, quarter of the potentially eligible population that actually graduates. And then those that graduate say, I wasn't taught the right skills. Why? Because the education system is not focused necessarily on teaching the skills that are relevant in the job. They are teaching, basic skills that are very important. But if only a quarter of the population are getting them, and they don't get the skill in addition that they need in the workplace, we are underserving the customer. That is the clarion call. And thankfully now, with technology and the ability to scale, we can actually start solving this problem. And we can say, we're not going to put you in the straitjacket that there's only one way to actually get an education. So now, with the flexibility of giving people skills that are relevant, workforce skills that are relevant in the workplace, and we can do it at much lower cost and much faster, 6-8 months, and it's $3,000 as opposed to $30,000 in 4 years, right? That is the breakthrough opportunity that we have right now and that we need to take advantage of.
The vast majority of folks who are in our audience for the Future We Want podcast come from the world of business and or brands. They're often working in a variety of roles and industries. And all of us in this conversation are trying to figure out how do we design and steward organizations of the future and navigate these incredible challenges and the change at hand. And if we're going to redesign business models, new processes, our supply chains to create new products and services, if we're going to tell new stories that shape our aspiration, our sense of connection, community, identity, and belonging, how, who, where, and what we learn are all going to have to evolve as well.
Right.
What do business and brand leaders need to know about learning? And what do we need to do to navigate these profound transformations successfully?
The first thing you need to know is nobody is going to solve the problem for you. You as a business will have to become actively engaged in solving the problem. A large number of businesses, and now it's, at this point, it's the leading business, the technology businesses, the Googles of this world, the Microsofts of this world, have discovered that if they just rely on the traditional education system and they put in their job description, I want a degree and I want this and I want that they're not going to find the talent that they need to actually succeed as a business in the future world. In addition, they find, that once they actually recruit the talent, for the vast majorities, they need to start training them again. And they need to start training them on what the skills are that in the jobs that they've been hired for. And I think we need to and we are exploring it right now. We need to find a new way for a collaboration between businesses and educational institutions. And that could be a 2-year college, could be a 4-year college. It could be a company like Cengage Group where we're delivering workforce skills. How can we better align what the educational experience is and then what the work experience is like, right? I mean, I asked my 21-year-old who just graduated from Michigan State, I asked him, I said, Charlie, so what do you think you're good at? And he said, I don't know. It's like, I'm trying to figure it out by going to work. So, basically, and, I'm sure he had great courses, but he didn't know why he was learning the stuff that he was learning. Right? And how would it be applicable? So why does everything have to be so compartmentalized? Why can't they have a work experience while they're studying? Why can't they bring it back? Why does it have to be 4 years? Who says anything magical about 4 years? There's nothing magical about it. So those are the things we have to challenge. And for your audience, I would say figure out how you can improve your recruiting function and the training while you have people in your organization. How do you train them and get them ready for the next job inside your organization or outside your organization? Nobody can guarantee lifelong employment anymore. No company can do this. But what I'm striving to do with Cengage Group is I want to guarantee lifelong employability. And for that, I need to educate and train and teach.
Whether it's conformity or whether it's a limiting mindset, whether it's just not having the tools or the platforms available, what do you think is getting in the way of the kind of approach to lifelong learning and employability that we need?
What's getting in the way is fear of change. Look, we have institutions that are that have been set up in many cases for hundreds of years to operate in a certain way, right? It starts in the fall, you recruit a bunch of students, then they go through the process, and nobody says, no. Yeah, do stackable degrees. In other words, the person doesn't have to be on campus, can do a degree here or can get a certificate there. And we have never done that before. I don't know. That might not be better. So a lot of people have objections, and it takes leadership, and it takes the type of leaders in the academic institution like Michael Crow at Arizona State, Paul LeBlanc at Southern New Hampshire, the Western governors. I think there are a few institutions that are leading the way and that are breaking down these barriers. But before we have 7,500 institutions in the United States alone that will do this, it's a labor of love, and it will be faced with a lot of setbacks. That's what gets in the way. not the technology, not the need, not the employer, and not the student.
And how have you in your own leadership balanced innovation and scale? So how have you started to try to pioneer new ways? We had the great opportunity to work together to launch Cengage Unlimited, which was a complete reimagination of textbooks to digital subscriptions. What are the ways that our audience and our peers can both challenge norms, pioneer practices, while keeping in mind that the end goal is ultimately scale, so it's accessible by everyone?
So, it's. I'm always smiling when people say, like, oh, here are the 3 ways to do innovation, right? Maybe I'm not smart enough. Decidedly possible, but I think in hindsight it all looks so damn easy, right? I think the reality is we have learned through failure more than anything else. What I hold in very high esteem in Cengage Group is we had the willingness and the desire to try, to fail, and to fail cheaply, and then go and try again. And we have been, you mentioned Cengage Unlimited, which was, as you said, was a major innovation in textbooks, and thankfully worked out. But we tried different models before, and they didn't work out. And then we finally got to the point where we became convinced that this bold move was financially feasible. Because you can be bold and really stupid, and you could put therefore the existence of your company and thousands of jobs at risk. Or you can be bold and smart and try, and as I said, fail cheaply.
And where does that culture start, and how is that manifest? Because I feel like you've been such a transparent leader, your Friday town halls, sharing your both insights and failures personally. What have you learned about holding a culture that embraces learning through failure, willing to try, growing through the process? Like, what have you learned about just holding that kind of space so that your team has the permission and the confidence to create and to lead?
So I've learned that, first of all, you have to have patience, certainly in education. You have to have patience. In other words, you come in, and I came in, over 10 years ago, and I said, like, this is the way it's going to go, and yeah, I know it, and this is the end point. It's like, I was humbled, and I have been hopefully more right than wrong, but I've certainly been both. I've been right and wrong. In terms of the culture building, you touched on a point that really, I think, is foundational, and it's foundational to me, which is transparency. And I am still shocked and surprised how many leaders are spending hours and hours to massage and, shape press releases and town halls and, like, what can I say? And they have scripts and they have rehearsals and whatever. And my question is always like, what can't you say? Now, there are certain things you can't say, right? I mean, certain things that are illegal to say, right? I mean, you can't disclose your financial performance before you disclose it to the rest of the world. So you have to be, cognizant of that. But frankly, Raphael, there are very few things you can say. What you need to spend time on is to provide context for people so that they can understand the information, so that they have the context that you have, so that they can truly process it. That takes time.
And part of, putting all this together, what we're talking about, Michael, is a moment in business and society of profound change. The role of learning through life is being transformed as we're changing. And you're talking about what's going to be required, regardless of the role that we play in an organization, to navigate the change. And part of this is the willingness to challenge assumptions, to try new and pioneering ways, and to be radically transparent about the journey, whether that's moments to celebrate, moments to kind of get through the valleys together, while always I've experienced like distributing leadership to the team. The more that the team has the ability to make choices, lead decisions, learn, the more resilient we'll be through this transformation. Mm-hmm. Well, I know that our audience is super interested in looking ahead and diving a bit deeper into AI. And your new Cengage Group employability study kind of hits this right on the head in the headline, which is Artificial Intelligence Joins the Workforce. And in the study that you released earlier in the summer, for employers, you found that a large majority say that the growth of AI is prompting them to prioritize different skills when hiring, specifically uniquely human skills, and also say that employees will need to learn very different kinds of skills in the next 3 to 5 years, which includes training alongside AI. For future employees or recent graduates, the study found that nearly half feel threatened by AI and that it could replace their job. And majorities say that AI makes them question whether they're prepared for the workforce or not. One of the consequences of AI that you call forth in the report is that this is now a moment for the great reskilling. And I'm curious, how are you at Cengage Group in the way that you're designing for the future? How do you see the imperative or the opportunity of the great reskilling? Tell us more.
Yeah, I look. It comes back to straight to your audience, Raphael, to businesses today, and it comes back to what do I need to do with my employee base in order to continue to make them ready and capable and productive in this new world that we're about to enter. And education will not be just a benefit. It used to be for the last 20 years that large corporations said, like, yeah, we'll give you, we'll give you a stipend so you can do some learning, or maybe we'll give you a scholarship, we'll give you some time, and then you can do this. It'll become from a nice to have, it'll move to a must have. And it will be a lot more flexible, and therefore people can do it while they have a job. So, we just have to give them the flexibility to do it maybe in the evening for 2 hours. And then again, maybe on the weekend for 2 hours. And I think that kind of flexibility is possible now. And the smart educational institutions are getting it. And we, as a provider of education, so we do two things. We provide learning materials where somebody else takes that learning materials, but we also provide direct learning. So in our Cengage Work business, we work directly with employers in healthcare, in education, in trades, to actually teach people on the job without disrupting their work life or with disrupting as little as we can.
In the report, and what the great reskilling signals is that industries will be changing, AI will disrupt certain kinds of jobs or roles. And employers were saying, in addition to really clarifying how we learn and succeed alongside AI, the other highlight inside of there was the soft skills. And the reality that if we're going to solve the problems that we're facing, if we're going to be as nimble and agile to grow in time and adaptive to grow in time, things like curiosity, collaboration, resilience. We'll talk in a minute about mental health and your role with Talkspace. What are the non-technical parts of the education transformation, and what are the roles that soft skills will be playing in the future of work?
Yeah, look, I think the data is extremely compelling that you're citing, right? And I assume a lot of people in your audience, whether they're in the HR department or leaders in the business or brand leaders, can remember or see it every day, what is required to be successful, to bring teams together, the soft skills around, listening skills, ability to synthesize information, different viewpoints, stimulate people to be creative about solutions, etc. All of those things, often people say, well, I kind of learned this on the job, which is fine, but I do think there's a lot of it that is teachable. So soft skills will be something that will become an increasing differentiator, already is, but will become an increasing differentiator of how humans can add value relative to machine-generated learning.
One of the things that you've highlighted is your awareness and real commitment to people's holistic well-being and mental health in particular. As a new generation, Gen Z, starts to move into the workforce, so many of us have children or family or friends whose children are facing mental health challenges. You are on the board of Talkspace, which is really integrating, technology with mental health therapy and supports. What do you see as the role of mental health and well-being in this transformation of work and life? And how might we as leaders be mindful of and ultimately support and nourish healthy, whole people?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's great analogy of what we talked about in education before, and the need to flexibilize education and align it more to what we do in everyday life, in our work, whether it is in a company or that it's an institution, or whether it's with our families. I think we need to think about it holistically and not in categories. And what I loved about this Talkspace idea is that is very much their mantra. So mental health is needed, but it's not the traditional, I live in New York. So, you go to the Upper East Side, you have a session with your therapist, and it's like, 55 minutes, and then you go out, the kind of things we all saw on Seinfeld and other things, right? That's cool, but very few people can afford that. And very few people have the time and the wherewithal. So how can we make it more bite-sized? How can we make it more in the moment? You actually have a challenging situation because you have now been at home on Zoom for 8 hours, and the kids are crying and the dog wants to get out, and you're just overwhelmed. And you just want to have somebody to help you sort of frame the decisions that are in front of you in this very moment and help you think through them in a systematic way. Well, you can do this with a bite-sized, maybe just a text message. Or maybe it's a little more. You actually want a video chat, and you really want 35 minutes with that person. So why do we force solutions that are comfortable for us on the user who might have a different need? And that is what Talkspace does, I think, remarkably well. And I think that's why I was so excited about it, and excited to join, and excited to help them in their journey. As it comes to mental health, I think there is no question that what is, even today before AI, what is just coming our way in terms of challenges, changes. Now we have to navigate different environment, the political environment that we're in, challenges with childcare. You mentioned this before, Raphael. All of those are overwhelming. And let's admit, sometimes we're just overwhelmed. Let's not try to pretend that we are the all singing and dancing bear that can do everything all the time. It's okay to be vulnerable. And actually, if you're okay with that, you're going to get stronger as a result of it. And you're going to get more resilient as a result of that. And I think that's the kind of people we want to surround ourselves with. These are the kinds of employees that we want to have.
Right on. And what I love about what you're naming inside of Talkspace is there's a metaphor there, which is for many, many decades, we've really tried to train or conform the person, the human, to be inside the system. And what you're saying is, no, the system has to conform to the human. And whether that's access or flexibility or a lot more sensitivity to what we're all navigating, that's the great opportunity for innovation, for technology, for leadership.
Yeah.
Amen. So our podcast is called The Future We Want. How would you describe, Michael Hansen, the future that you want?
I see a future where we all, hopefully, stop categorizing things in things that are convenient little boxes for us. I love to use the example that is completely outside business, is like autism. Autism used to be a disease that was categorized as you're autistic, period, end of story, and then people kind of knew and had in their head what it was. Now we're using appropriately the word on the spectrum. And that means there is a spectrum of things that individual can do. And now we can figure out how this individual can best, how the environment best configured, how that individual still can live a meaningful and productive, and in some cases, amazing life of great productivity. We need to approach every problem the same way. Stop this fallacy of saying, I know exactly what this is X, because I've seen it before, right? No, you haven't. So I see a world where we stop categorizing for the sake of categorizing, employ much more limitless thinking around the options, and make smart options around it, make smart choices around the options that we have.
A huge amen to that. And the idea that inside of every person, inside of every business is limitless. And it's the conformity and the constraints we often put on it that limit what we can create and fail to see the infinite potential right in front of you every single time. Awesome. And this is a perfect segue to the final question. I have a feeling you might do this all the time with your sons, but if you could speak with your 20-year-old self of Michael, looking back to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you share about experiencing meaningful work and a fulfilling life?
I love that question because I think it's so hypothetical, it will never happen. And let me tell you why. When I was 20, I had the energy, I had the body, I had the willingness to do anything, and I had none of the wisdom that I have today. And I have none of the experience. So whatever I would tell myself at the time, I wouldn't believe because I just didn't have the confidence to believe it, right? Now I have the damn confidence and, I'm working on keeping my body in shape. So I'm trying to do that. But there's something unfair about life that with 20, you don't have the confidence. And, with 50 plus, you have the confidence and you need to work hard on your body. So I don't know what wisdom I would share. The only thing I know is that I wouldn't be listening as a 20-year-old, certainly not with an open mind.
Well, I think appreciating the 20-year-old version of yourself in today, I do believe what I experience in your relationship with your kids, your children, is very much an interplay of youthful energy and curiosity and wonder, and not forcing on your sons lessons that you're, dictating, but rather guiding and coaching.
Guiding and coaching. And I tell you, COVID was a blessing in that respect, because as many of us did, like all of a sudden, people said do you work to live or live to work or whatever? I live it at work all of a sudden, right? It was not by choice. It's like every time there was Zoom. And obviously we were in a room together and they overheard me. So they saw me in action. And I think they learned more by what I did rather than what I told them. I mean, if you sit down and say hey, guys, there are 3 things that I learned, they're going to go, it's like, Dad, come on. It's like, but if they see you and they see other people respond, and I have management team meetings where they come in, they have whatever, they have a cup of coffee, a drink with the management team, and they know many of my people in the management team. That's how they learn.
Well, Michael, this is a delight. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for your wisdom, for your stories, and for all that you've offered the field. I have been such a fan since the moment we met in your office in Soho, and I'm the kind of person who would follow you anywhere. I'm right behind you, and so grateful of our relationship, but also just inspired every day by what you're holding. So thank you for being part of the conversation.
And Raphael, thank you, and let me pay the compliment back. As you can imagine, that over the years I've worked with many agencies and I've worked with many partners in this journey, because I really believe there are certain things others can do better than we can do. And there are few that rise to the top of being true partners and partners in thinking and partners in shared values. And you personally and your organization are definitely there. And I have admired the work that you've done, but I have admired most the spirit in which you did it. And that left the lasting impression.
Right back at you. It's entirely mutual. And we're really, really grateful. Thank you, my friend.
Right, and we're going to end the love affair here, and we'll say goodbye to your audience.
For now,
right.
just for now. That's right. Bye for now.
Exactly. All right,
bye, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks so much for listening to The Future We Want from BBMG. We've been imagining a learner-centered future for education with Kelly Young, president at Education Reimagined, and Michael Hansen, CEO at Cengage Group. If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll subscribe and spread the word, as it helps more folks find the podcast. And if you're interested in learning more, visit bbmg.com for more resources and recommendations from our guests and the BBMG team. The Future We Want is produced by Liz Courtney. Original music and audio production is by Go Destroy Art. See you in the future.